I think you're really going to enjoy the first project of this year. I call these things wham plates because we're going to take this wood block and wham it into the clay on top of a piece of foam. And you're going to end up with these really beautiful plates that have a really nice indent on the inside. We're going to use these plates as a vehicle for surface decoration. If you're in my Pottery 1 class, we're going to learn Inlay. And in my Pottery 2 classes, we're going to learn mocha diffusion and shellac resist. Can't wait to get started. To begin your plate, the first thing you're going to need to do is decide what size you want to make. We have two basic sizes. We have a rectangle and a larger square. And you want to pick before you start, so go ahead and choose either rectangle or square and then find the paper that matches. Then I want you to also notice that they have two different sides to the blocks. One side of the block is textured or burnt. The burnt adds a texture to the block. And the other side is smooth. And they can be used in multiple ways. You can use them flat or on their edges. Okay, you also notice that they have a number 1 or a number 2 on them. I would start with the number 1. The number 1s are easier to use. And after you've used the number 1, then you can move on and try the number 2. When making your paper template, I like to fold it in half one way and then fold it again in half the other direction. This is going to help you make it symmetrical, and it's going to help you make a really nice looking plate. Ready to cut it, you want to find the open edge. That's the side you want to cut. If you cut the folded edge, you'll get multiple pieces, which is what we don't want. So go ahead and find that open edge, and then keep your design simple. If you get too many tight creases in it, it can fold and do weird things when you're pushing the plate into the foam. So keep it simple. Simple's good in this case. When you're making your paper template, you want it to be about 1.5 to 3 inches bigger than the block you're using. Now, this first try here, I noticed it was a little bit on the big side, which isn't such a big deal, but it can make your plate flop sort of when you're building it. So I'm just cutting it down here a little bit so it's a little more manageable. After you try this a few times, you really get the idea of what is going to work and what won't work. Now that you've got your paper template cut out, go ahead and roll out a slab on the slab roller. Then use your knife to cut around the template. When doing this, you want to keep the knife in a vertical up and down position and avoid cutting at an angle. Cutting at an angle makes sharp edges that you'll need to clean up later. Now that you've got it all cut out, use your sponge or your finger and a little bit of water and really get that slab smooth. Now you see here I'm holding my finger at an angle. Our goal is to get the edge round. If we have sharp 90-degree cuts on our slab, it will chip when it's in the bone dry stage. So we want to get those edges round. Spending a little extra time on it right now is going to save you 20-30 minutes later on in the bone dry stage. So get this thing smooth now, and it's going to save you tons of time. Now we're at the fun part. We get to take that wood block and we're going to center it up on our slab. And you can see the slab is sitting on a piece of foam. That's a must. It has to be on the piece of foam. And I'm going to try to center this up. Now I found that my eye and most students' eye are perfect, and you will need to measure very little. But it doesn't hurt to go ahead and use your finger as a measurement tool. You can see how I'm using my thumb and my finger to figure out how wide it is, and then I'm checking it the other side. Now, my thumb doesn't quite, there's a little space right there, so I need to push the block ever so slightly. But 9 times out of 10, your eye is going to be perfect and right on, and you won't need to move it at all. But it doesn't, like I said, doesn't hurt to measure twice. Now I call them wham plates because you're going to use the wood block and you're going to push down on it. But you're not actually going to push down it with a lot of fast force. It's a slow force. So you can see here I'm pushing it down, and it's super important not to let go of the block. The block will fling up off the foam and hit you right in the face, so you want to avoid that. Push down and let go slow. Put your hand underneath the foam block, flip the whole thing over, then take the foam off. Now because I use the textured block, you're going to see me use my finger to push the clay into the texture. You only do this if you're using a textured block. If you're using the smooth side of the block, you do not want to do this. So I'm using my finger to push it into the texture here, and you do want to avoid the edges because you can shear the clay off on the edge of the block. Again, you only do this if you're using the textured side of the block. If you're using the smooth side, you would not do this. And now once I've done this, I can use my stamp to stamp my name on it. And then I'm going to go put my in front of the fan for about 5 to 10 minutes. It needs to go in front of the fan so it can dry and not flop when you flip it over. After about 5 minutes, you're about ready to take that block out. So when you flip it over, go ahead and make sure you support it. You still want to be very careful with it so it doesn't flop. So flip it over, set it down on a hard surface, and then gently remove that block. And you're going to find out how awesome that plate is. Look at how good it looks. The texture came through perfect from the wood block, and I have very little cleanup to do. Then we're going to put it in our tubs and put it on our shelf so it can dry to the leather hard stage for next class, and I'll show you how to clean them up then. Make as many as you want and have fun. Forgot one thing. If you're making a large plate, you're going to want to learn something called the pottery flip. I'm going to put a board on the bottom of the pot, and the board is on the top of the pot as well. I'm supporting it with both sides, and I'm going to flip it over. This makes it very easy to flip over large forms without distorting them, and it's a must learn if you're going to make any larger size plates. So there's the pottery flip, and we have this beautiful wham plate that we're going to decorate. I can't wait.